My name is Emma Taylor and you are listening to the Obscast.
My name is Neil Mudford and welcome to the Obscast.
6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. All engine running. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Hello, my name is Rob Dawes and welcome to Shield Observatory's February Obscast. Shield Observatory conducts public outreach on various platforms, from our often sold-out flagship events, the public open events, to school visits and uniformed troops, guides, beavers and cubs, to U3As and WY and other adult groups. All these different outreach sections have a strong common theme running throughout. Shield Observatory offers a front row seat to the solar system and wider universe through our numerous time machines, also known as telescopes. The centrepiece is of course our gorgeous 24-inch Newtonian reflecting telescope, built by a genius that goes by the name of Gordon Jones, who is one of our founding members. Our main telescope is housed in our 36-foot diameter dome, again built by our founding members and lovingly maintained and updated by current serving trustees and members, together providing countless wow times for all who visit Shield Observatory. And if you are a member of our society, you can have as many wow times as you like, all for less than £1 a week. Wait a moment, there is more to Shield Observatory. As excellent as our telescopes are, we have other sections to our outreach programme that also deliver wow times. That outreach section is of course Shield Observatory's Radio Astronomy Centre. Joining me tonight for this episode are Steve Binns, who is our trustee and communications officer for Shield Observatory, and fellow member John Brown. Good evening to you both.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Right. First of all, my first question to you both is, how long have you been involved in Shield Observatory's Radio Astronomy Centre?
Almost a year. I've been a member a year. I think it's in April.
Okay. Who is it who heads up our Radio Astronomy Centre again?
Nigel Cunnington,
Nigel
otherwise known
Cunnington.
as Sparky.
Ah, of course, yes. Steve, what about you?
Yeah, I joined in 2015. I took an interest in it when it was just in the little room at the back. We was just noticing pings. But now Sparky's built the fabulous Radio Astronomy Centre over the way. So I've got more interested in it since we've got all the antennae and information that we can gather, and it's become very interesting. So I've become more interested from early last year, really.
Absolutely, Steve. What I've noticed in recent months is that the increase in interest in our Radio Astronomy Centre from the public. Now, this has manifested itself in a visit by the RAF cadets with a dedicated lecture on our Radio Astronomy Centre and its activities to be given by you both in early February. Do you feel that anything in particular is responsible for this upturn in the interest in radio astronomy? I'm thinking off the top of my head that the M87 elliptical galaxy in Virgo, when the first image was obtained by that huge telescope, and that's the beauty of radio astronomy, isn't it? We've got a huge 24-inch Newtonian reflector here at the observatory, but radio telescopes can be as big as the Earth.
Yeah, I think the launch of James Webb last year really made a massive interest in all ages, because it was on the news, it was on separate programs all through the day, and I just think word of mouth from our open evenings and our solar days, our Cubs, Brownies and Scout visits, and I just think that word has gone viral. And I do think with our YouTube platform, social media and Twitter, I just think that the word has spread and more people are interested in not just optical, because it can be cloudy. They can come to radio astronomy and see what we've got to offer, and I just think it's going from strength to strength.
I've noticed that with the visits, what I head up, that you often get asked about the black holes and the image what's being produced. So I think it's had a profound effect on the young and not so young alike. So our flagship open events are extremely popular. Like I say, it's often sold out. So can you explain the setup that is used for radio astronomy at these events?
Yeah, the various aerials are needed. That's basically because each aerial covers a narrow section of the radio wavelengths. So we need quite a collection. The first two you see as you come down the road to the observatory, on the right hand side you'll see the roof of the observatory is now covered in aerials, and also the RAC Centre, which is the container on the right hand side, has got aerials as well. The first aerial that we come to really, as you see, is the huge aerial that extends up and is the meteor, and it's for meteor detection. The two meteor detectors do two things. The larger one is for what we call backscatter, which then comes from stations in Belgium, the BRAMS, the Belgium radio meteor stations. So we can use that to look at meteors coming this way. It's registered and then it's picked up by the meteor, but it's broadcast from Belgium. So we pick up that.
Oh, so when members of the public turn up, they can look at the screen and actually see real-time live data coming through of all the, like as you call it, pings coming in, what we're picking up here at the Radio Astronomy Centre.
There is a portable aerial which is working, but there's still work needs to be done on the main aerials, on the forward backscatter, which is a job in progress. But radio astronomy it's obvious it's just a job in progress the whole time. So it's growing.
It's interesting how we measure them, because they rebound off the tail of the meteor. So it's like a laser or a torch shining off a wall and rebounding back at you. It doesn't hit the meteor itself because that's too small. So it rebounds off the tail, which can be hundreds and hundreds of miles long. And when that hits our antenna, that's when we get the ping.
This is always going to intrigue the public, isn't it? You know, objects coming from space to Earth on it. Is there any plans in the pipeline for the meteor showers events or anything like that?
We've got the meteor beacon, which Brian Coleman visited our site last year. He chose our site to install the meteor beacon because it was high. It's not got buildings around it, and it's in the middle of the country, i.e. in the Midlands. We are now a receiver, we are now a transmitter, and there are smaller stations that can receive information from our transmitter, which goes up to 250 miles high, and then it can get information from meteors that are passing overhead. And in effect, we are the Brahms and Graves that are in France and Belgium. So when it's online, we will be the transmitter, and other smaller stations will pick up the information that we get.
That must be a huge feather in Sherwood Observatory's cap to be chosen for a beacon, meteor beacon like this.
It was. Sparky was absolutely over the moon. I think we're the only one, are we not, John?
Yes, only one in the country.
Only one in the country, and it is a massive feather in our cap, and it's come at the right time as well. With the Science Discovery Centre, we need the media, we need the coverage, we need the press information, and it looks as though we're getting that from everywhere now. People are getting interested.
But actually it all started 2 years ago when I went on to a Zoom meeting for the British Astronomy Association Radio Astronomy section, at which Brian Coleman was there. And in my introduction of myself, I mentioned the observatory and I showed him a picture of it, and he said, "This is for us."
All right.
And from there, I effected an introduction with Sparky, and well, as I say, the rest is history.
It's a great result. Are there any plans to expand it to Wales, Scotland, Northern Ireland?
Obviously the meteor beacon is in its infancy at the moment. The second phase is coming online shortly. We don't know how many, I don't know how many receivers are out there.
As far as I'm aware, it's just something that's being run by amateurs.
Yeah.
So if an amateur decides they want to get involved, they can then build a receiver. And obviously it depends where they live, I suppose, before to see the network expand.
Excuse me, I was referring to transmitters. We're in
Oh,
the
right.
Midlands. I thought I heard something about perhaps having a transmitter in Scotland, one in Wales, so that we can get the cover for the whole of Britain.
There's one in London where Brian Coleman is down in Surrey, and there's one up in Cheshire, and there's one in the Midlands. So the northern one obviously covers the northern part of the country, and the London one the southern part. I don't know how far. They're including us. That's the only three.
I might be wrong, but I was aware that the beam that's being sent up by this Moxon is covering something like 450 miles. So it's basically, when it gets up to about, is it 200 odd miles?
250 miles.
It's about 400 miles across, which then gives coverage
Okay,
for the country.
right, thanks.
So I think 3 transmitters, which they are at the
Yeah.
moment, will cover a lot of the country. Yeah.
That is for triangulation purposes back at the sort of centre station that deals with this.
Will there be one sort of receiving centre what collates all the information and then puts it out, or can people just tap into the beacon and take whatever information's already available?
No, I think what will happen. Is, say there's 10 radio astronomers over the country. They can then liaise with each other to find out what they've got on a certain date at a certain time. We are only the transmitter, like Graves and Brahms are in France and Belgium. So if receivers want to talk to each other, say one in Scotland, one in Wales, they can do. They just hit the link and they can compare what readings they've got over the year, and that's how it will work.
I suppose something like this with the network, it'd be great if we get a meteorite land who makes it down to Earth to triangulate exactly where it is to find the remains.
Yeah.
That'd be great.
Oh,
Yeah, it would be very interesting.
Winchester does spring to mind, yes.
I mean, what we're talking about now, what Sparky's talking about is we've got Skycam. Chris has got Skycam.
Sure.
What Sparky wants to do is use Skycam in parallel running with the meteor detection, so that we can see when we've hit it. Say if we hit one tonight at midnight, we could look at the Skycam at midnight, and then we could triangulate it back to see where it's come from, so we can gain more information from that. We're not at that
Absolutely.
stage yet, but that's what we're looking at.
Yeah, as you say, it's work in progress, isn't it?
It is, yes.
People have to realise we're all volunteers here, and we have other commitments. But so far, this is absolutely fantastic, and it's only, like you say, it's only going to get better.
Yes,
and
it
it's
is
still in
really
its
interesting,
infancy,
yeah.
and showing great promise already. That's fantastic. That is for our society to be chosen. It is a beautiful experience.
Yeah, I mean, Neil, it's all thanks to Neil, really. I forgot about that because it's so long ago. But
Well,
yeah, Neil, you shown him, and he came, and that's what helped us.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's what we're all about.
Yeah.
isn't it?
well, that's
And most of science is actually generated by an odd meeting,
Yes.
and a togetherness of minds.
well, I'm absolutely right there with you, Neil. Because just a casual conversation, you never know where it's going to lead.
Yeah, do you remember a chap called Steve Jobs?
I do, yes.
Well, he designed the Apple Centre with the toilets in the middle of the building, so people would sort of bounce ideas off. The trouble is, those at the extremities were complaining they were spending more time walking from the toilets back to the office every day than they actually were working.
It all worked out in the end. It is just that's a passion what comes out of astronomers. They need to talk to people about their passion, and like I say, who knows where it's going to lead. Fantastic, Neil. Well done, Steve. I do believe Sherwood Observatory has its own weather satellite link.
We do, yes. We have links into the NOAA weather satellite.
Are we
NOAA,
going to
which
get that
stands
much
for
rain?
NOAA, which stands for National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, to cut a long story short. That is above us now, and it's in a 250-mile polar orbit. So it's 250 miles above us, and it goes in a polar orbit. So it goes above over the North Pole, over the South Pole, and it goes round the Earth roughly
4 times a day?
four, 6 times a day.
Yeah.
The reason it's in a polar orbit is because the reason I explain to children is when you go and get some bacon and a bacon slicer, they don't slice it through the middle. They slice it off each end. And that's what the NOAA satellite is doing. Every time it goes round, it takes a photograph. Then when it goes round again, the Earth has moved a little bit. So it takes a photograph of a little bit of different area, and so on, until it takes the whole image of the UK. So once that has done, it downloads onto our system. Then the system automatically changes frequency to go to another satellite, and it starts all over again. We can print that off on the printer in the Radio Astronomy Centre, and we've got one on the wall in there from June, July, I think. That's not off the internet, that is off the NOAA satellite, which is above us now, and it is in a polar orbit, so that's where we get the information from.
Is this something what's running when open events occur? And is it just by chance if it's above us at the time, or can we link into the data stream?
No, it's working all the while. It's sending information to us all the while, and if we need to print that out, we can do. We only printed one out, but it's obviously the satellite is going in a polar orbit all the while, and if we extract that information, we can print, say, yesterday's weather and put that on the wall. But we tell children that it's not like a bacon slicer. You don't slice it through the middle, because it's taking slices of the UK in photography. That generates a weather map. It's not a forecast, it's in real time, so you can see where the clouds are, and it generates the picture which we can show anybody who comes to visit, really.
How long is this satellite going to be in orbit for? Is it still in its prime condition, or bits failing on it?
Yeah, well, it's funny you should ask that, because we did have one NOAA and NOAA 18, and that has got some geolocation errors. So we're not using that anymore. We're using, I think it's NOAA 19 or NOAA 20, isn't it? So NOAA 18 still works, but it's not 100% correct. So we've gone on to using another NOAA satellite. So, but there's about 3 up there, 17, 18, 19 and 20, I believe. So that's where we get the information from, and we show that visitors who come around.
So all this data stream, is that all available for anyone who can actually receive it, or do you have to?
I believe so. If someone wanted to download the link and they had the laptop and the technology to do so, I'm sure they could do it, yes.
Excellent. Thanks for the weather forecast, Steve. And by Jove, we've got something on Jupiter and Io, haven't we, John?
Yes, we have. This is a further system that's in the pipeline for working on. Michael Williams, who's joined the society recently, has taken this under his arm on the technical side. I can perhaps talk about the astronomy a little bit. The technical side, I'm a waste of time. Now, again, the Jupiter or the Jove system, what it does, although it registers solar in one part, the main interest to me is the fact that it'll register on the Jupiter Io system. What it does basically is Io whips around Jupiter in about 2 days, and it's involved in Jupiter's magnetic field, so it's generating power all the time. What it does when it's at this outside, either side Jupiter, it generates a visible signal. When it's in front or behind Jupiter, it sort of goes blind, so we get these areas when it becomes visible. The signal then bounces around inside Jupiter, and it's that comes in here and gets received on this antennae, but it's got to be pointed in the right area. It should be originally as 2 aerials, massive aerials, going up into the air, but that wasn't going to work at the society, so Nigel designed this wonderful aerial system to make it a bit more compact and a bit more suitable for the society.
How's the data going on, Jove, by the way?
As you said earlier, I think it's work and things that get in the way, but Michael's doing quite a bit of work at it, but I've not spoke to him recently to see how it's going, so whether it's going to be a while or a longer while, I'm not quite sure.
We will be able to hear Jupiter making noises when it's up and running.
Well, that will be a fantastic addition.
It will be a wonderful thing to hear.
Because Jupiter's a beautiful target, no matter where it is in its orbit, and it's just a big draw for the public and our members alike. So that'll be a great thing when we get that up and running.
It ties in as well with, if you look at photographs of Io, because you see all the eruptions and the fact that Io's been turned inside out. It's all part of the activity that goes on with Io around Jupiter. So that's just another aspect, and this is just another way of getting involved with that and what's happening.
Absolutely right, John, because like I say, when you explain to people who visit us about, the volcanic activity on Io, it does help build that picture up in someone's mind, what they can visualise in that tiny little world with a great big Jupiter, how they interact. It's just a fascinating subject, isn't it?
When
Yes,
you
it
can,
is,
when
it
you
is,
consider it's creating over 400,000 volts.
Yes, that's right. Yeah,
And
it's
equivalent
good
to,
power.
3 million amperes,
3 million,
which
yeah.
is quite a bit of power.
There's no energy shortage there.
There's not.
No.
We need to tap into that somehow. So we're going to go on to hydrogen line now, I do believe. The rotation of our galaxy, is this right, Steve? Surely not.
No, the hydrogen line is a system that Sparky's done again. It's a fairly new one, and we've been doing this for quite a while, making bullet points for one of our students now. He's learning that. Taylor, he's learning that, which is very, very good. The hydrogen line, what it does, it measures the emissions of monatomic hydrogen particles within the arms of our solar system. It can pick up hydrogen molecules from Orion, Perseus, and the Cygnus, the outer arm. So, sorry.
So I'm going to say you could build up a picture of the arms of the Milky Way galaxy
We can.
without the density
Yes,
cuts of the hydrogen.
What we do, we run a system in stellarium. We choose an area in stellarium that's fairly dark. Then we run it. In effect, what we do is we Photoshop the noise. We don't want any excess noise. So what we do is we Photoshop the noise, and then we choose a bright star. Usually we can use Deneb. Then we get the information from Deneb. After 5 minutes, the information comes back in loads and loads of columns of numbers. The numbers of the columns are generated into a graph. We can see the graph, and it's called an integration. So we can see the peaks of the 2 or 3 arms if we're lucky. The Perseus arm is the second one, but we get the main one from the Orion arm, which is our nearest one. They come as peaks. All the ones before, you can see a little bit of interference, but if we didn't do the Photoshop of the noise, that disturbance, that interference would be a lot more. So what we do is we try and get all that out and measure the particles of hydrogen. But yeah, we can compare that with other astronomy centres who are doing this sort of work.
So trying to get rid of all that noise, am I thinking right? It's like when images are taken and the processing all these stacked images to make that visual image sharper.
In effect, if you point an aerial at space, there will be lots and lots of noise. It could come from supernovas, pulsars, quasars, planets, stars. That's the noise we want to get rid of. And if we call it noise, it is noise. It's interference.
It could actually well be microwaves.
Yes, it could be microwaves.
Yeah. Car,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
It is sort of pretty.
So in effect, we want to
Filter them out.
get rid of that as much as we can, and then we can get the noise and measure the hydrogen particles that Sparky's got this antenna for. And it is interesting because sometimes you get redshift and blue shift, so we can tell whether these particles are going away from our Earth or coming towards Earth. So if it's blue shift coming towards us, red shift going away. So you can see how it works when you do the integration from the column of numbers. We've got loads and loads of integrations over there, haven't we, that we've both done. They're all stored on computer. We can share that with other societies that are doing this, not just in the UK, we can share it worldwide, because there are a lot of people doing this sort of work.
Well, that's just amazing, isn't it? The public can come here and visualise our Milky Way galaxy.
I find it amazing that
it is truly amazing. It is absolutely fantastic. Thanks, Steve, for that insight on the hydrogen line.
Okay.
John, I do believe Sherwood Observatory is twinned with a nuclear submarine.
More than one submarine, actually. What we've got is what we call the Super SID aerial. Super SID is actually what we use for observing flares that are coming from the sun. But the way we do that is we ride on the back of a system used by the Ministry of Defence to contact submarines out to sea. There are two stations at Anthorn and Skelton in Cumbria, and we ride on the back of them. What happens is a explosion of pure energy emits from the sun that we call a flare. You can see these visually, but these outflows of energy rip through space. They come down through the atmosphere and they sort of kick the submarine contact system. So we're not contacting the submarine, we're just sort of riding on the back of the signal that they're using to contact the submarines. Actually, as an interesting sideline, the submarine actually trails an aerial something like a mile behind to the rear of the submarine. So it is a massive aerial that they use. But as I say, we can't start World War III. We have tried, but we can't do it. So basically, we're just using the system as is.
Okay.
What should happen is, over time, we're building up this log of data. Some of it's being passed on to the Stanford Solar Research. But what we can do is we can then add this growing list of flares to naked eye or to white light observations of the sun to increase our view of the sun over a broader period over radio and visual. So it's a growing picture.
Absolutely, especially with the sun now starting to go into its active phase, things are really going to be, I say, hotting up, aren't they? Thanks for that fantastic insight into our Radio Astronomy Centre. It just goes to show, just with some enthusiasm, a little bit of cash and time, exactly what dedicated, passionate members can do. And who wouldn't want to get involved in this? Thank you both. Finally,
Yeah, thanks for that.
before I let you go, you're both passionate about astronomy. Is there anything in particular what's really giving you a wow moment in astronomy?
From my own point of view, it's got to be observing Jupiter over the years. Although I observe the sun, I also spend quite a bit of time observing Jupiter. And when you observe it and you keep records of what's going on, you do see things change. You see belts come and go. You see the zones come and go. You see storms appear. So it is known as the amateur's planet, and it's called it for a reason, because you can actually do something with it. The amateur can.
How many years have you been observing Jupiter?
I started in the sort of 70s. I think I went on a different way when they started with this. I took the chicken way out. I bought a telescope and started using it. So I did it for a while, then I got fed up and moved on to other things, then came back. So quite a while now,
Wow,
I suppose.
that is fantastic. Thanks, John. Steve?
I haven't been doing astronomy quite as long as John. I've only been doing it for about 8 years now, and the guy who got me interested was the guy to my right, Steve Smith. And I can always remember going round to his house just around the corner, and he's got a brilliant scope, and he told me all the information I needed to know. But one thing that I'll never ever forget is when Steve showed me the Bode galaxy, M81 and M82. It wasn't the actual fantastic sight of it, which was fantastic. It was the thought that I was looking at two galaxies when we can't even see our own. We can't even see all of our own galaxy. But there I was looking at two galaxies light years away with millions and millions of stars in each one.
And possibly life
And then
as well.
it beggars belief how we can say that there's no life out there. And this is just 2 galaxies, one the Bodes and the other Cigar Galaxy M82. And you just think of the thousands or even millions and millions of galaxies that there are out there. And that just blew me away. And I'll never, ever forget that with Steve's telescope.
There you go. Just
Thanks, Steve.
first look and you're
That's
hooked.
great.
Excellent.
Great to hear. And many other people have seen them and give them wow moments too. And there's lots of other things up there too.
It was superb. It really was.
Yeah.
Now we are going to our very own Mr. Look Up.
Sequence start. 6, 5.
So we're heading into February. Just what are February's highlights? Let's ask Mr. Look Up himself, Steve Smith. Hi, Steve.
Hi there. Thanks, Rob. Hi there, everybody. I'm Steve Smith, editor on the Event Horizon. And if you look in the Event Horizon, you'll see my monthly Looking Up article. Basically, that article's there because some years ago, I felt it would be useful if I go out to find stuff that I'd have a list of stuff to look at. So if you've got 20, 30 objects to look at, some of them that you know and you know where to find them, then that's great. But if you want to see anything new, have a list, because otherwise you'll forget about them and you'll not see it. So all the details I'm going to talk about tonight, most of the details for this talk are going to be in the Event Horizon on my article. I'm just going to give you a taster for what's coming up. There's stuff up there that comes around every year, like Orion and things like that. The planets tend to come around fairly regularly, but there's also stuff that makes a impact on us because they're not there for long. Like this month and over the month of February, from one end to the other, we're going to see a comet. It's called Comet 2022 E3 ZTF. So it's Comet 2022 E3, and it's forecast to become a naked eye object this month, so it's worth going out there and having a look for it. If you've got a pair of binoculars and you know where to look, then you should be able to find it, and it may even become a naked eye object too at some point during this month. Now in the EH I have put a little diagram in there which shows you where it is over the month, and you can track it through these constellations. Like for instance, on the 6th of February it will be close to Capella in Auriga, and it's close to Aldebaran in Taurus on the 16th of Feb. So this comet is tracking across the sky, and at various times of the month you should be able to stick your binoculars up there. It'll be in a different position from the night previous, but not too far away. So it's well worth, while it's here, going out and seeing if you can find it. You never know, it might become a naked eye object. And if, like Neowise a few years ago, that was caused quite a sensation. It's great to see one. So don't miss that opportunity. Another opportunity at this time of the year is the Great Plough. The plough is circumpolar. You can see it most of the year, but sometimes it's fairly low in the north, and at the moment it's straight above us. And there's lots of objects in the plough and around it which are really useful to look at when there's not much atmosphere between us and them. So I've made a list in the EH, and I'll just cover a few now, like M97, the Owl Nebula. You may know it, you may have seen it. It's a planetary nebula that appears quite large, but it's very faint. Now, at this time of year, it's the best opportunity to see it, and you may, with the right equipment and the right conditions, even be able to make out its eyes. So, can you discern its eyes? Have a look, see what you can do. If you can't quite make it out, use an oxygen-free filter or UHC filter to enhance the detail, and I can guarantee there'll be something there for you to see. Right next to that, about a degree away, there's M108. It's a spiral barred galaxy, and it's right next door to the Owl Nebula. So if you're looking for the owl, it's always worth hopping over to that. This is the best time of the year to look at the Bodes galaxies, M81 and M82. Steve Binns was talking about them a few minutes ago. He came round to my house, and it's the first memorable objects that he saw at my house. And they're up there now. They're straight up there, and even with some 10 by 50 binoculars or something like that, you should be able to see the Bode's galaxies, and it's easy enough to get to as well. If you imagine, there's a diagram in the EH, but Vector and Dubhe are two of the stars in the Plough's Bowl, and all you do is draw a line from Vector to Dubhe, carry the line on away from Dubhe for the same distance, and M81 and 82 should be in that area. So easy to find. If you can get a small scope on it, or even a big scope on it, you'll see lots of detail. And I've put a photo in the EH next to these items this year. Bang Aloud sent a photo in as a photo entry this month and has given me permission to stick it in my article. So I've put it in there, and I've credited him for it. So not too far away, just below the Plough, the Whirlpool Galaxy M51 or NGC 5194. It's one of the most conspicuous and best known face-on galaxies in the northern sky. M51's interacting with its neighbour, NGC 5195, and it can easily be seen on a dark night when you've got no moon, but it's face-on. It is faint. Have a look at it. It's a fantastic sight to discern those spiral arms. And this is one of the first galaxies that astronomers ever saw back in the 1800s, and they realised, what are these spiral arms, etc. So, have a look. Can you see its spiral arms? It'd be great to hear from somebody. Just keep talking about these sort of things. So, that's Ursa Major. And up a binocular object, let's go to that. The Beehive Cluster, or Proserpine, or otherwise known as Messier 44, is one of the most brilliantly impressive open clusters in the entire sky. It resides right in the middle of Cancer, and it's south at the moment. So it's up there. It's a beautiful open cluster, and there's another open cluster in Cancer as well, M67. If you want to look in that area, the Beehive Cluster is known as the Little Cloud, and it's been known since antiquity. So it's always worth, if you've got your binoculars or a small scope, having a look at it. It's a lovely, beautiful open cluster. There's a taster of what's going off this month. We talked about comets. Also, we've got planets up there at the moment. These planets are fleeting. Saturn now, next month, is going to be out of the picture because it's going to be in conjunction with the Sun. But we've still got Mars, we've got Jupiter, and we've got Venus. Venus makes in a very bright appearance over February, and so you'll see all these objects up in the sky at the same time, and it's a great sight to see a few planets lined up. But there they go. End of the month, some of these are disappearing. Jupiter is fast disappearing now. It's going to disappear into the murk in a few weeks' time, and so it'll be basically out of the picture. So there you go.
There's certainly a lot of fantastic objects there, Steve.
There is.
So I think there's enough for everybody to get out there, get looking up and enjoying the wondrous night sky we've got, clouds permitting, of course. What I've noticed, Steve, in your EH articles is all the images you use. Sky Safari 7, I believe, Pro, yes?
Yeah.
Just stunning. It's a stunning app, isn't it, where people can get literally interactive with the night sky on it and zoom in and learn about all the different objects. So thank you very much, Steve. It just shows you what is up there. Just get out there, enjoy, and come down to the observatory and enjoy the sky with fellow members as well.
Yep, so just don't forget, just keep looking up.
Absolutely. So that's going to be a wow moment through February. And Radio Astronomy, thanks, Steve. Thanks, John. Really appreciate your input to our Radio Astronomy Centre.
It's been great. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much. You're welcome. Good night, everybody.
Good night.